We often wonder why some people seem to accomplish everything effortlessly, while others struggle with the simplest tasks. Have you ever thought about what truly separates those who take action from those who remain stuck in endless procrastination? Sometimes, in our rush to be productive, we forget that there's a greater plan at work, one that requires us to understand the difference between true laziness and divine timing. We think we know what laziness is, but what if everything we believe about action and inaction is wrong? Maybe you're going through a phase where every day feels like a battle against your own mind, where getting out of bed itself seems like climbing a mountain. Or perhaps you're in a comfortable place, yet you know deep down you're not living up to your potential, letting opportunities slip by because taking action feels too hard. Then this story is for you. This story won't just make you think. It may also change how you view every moment of hesitation in your life. So listen carefully until the end. In a small village nestled at the foot of a great mountain, there lived a young carpenter named Marcus. Marcus was known throughout the village for one peculiar quality. He worked in bursts of intense energy followed by periods of what everyone called laziness. His workshop sat next to his modest home where he lived with his elderly grandmother, Sarah, who despite her age possessed wisdom that came from observing life for 8 decades. Marcus also had an unusual companion, an old crow named Solomon that would perch on his workshop window, watching him work with intelligent black eyes. The villagers often shook their heads when they passed Marcus's workshop. Some days, they'd see him crafting the most beautiful furniture with unmatched precision and speed. Other days, they'd find him sitting on his porch, staring at the mountain, seemingly doing nothing at all. Such wasted talent, they would whisper, if only you weren't so lazy half the time. One morning, a wealthy merchant came to the village seeking the finest carpenter to build furniture for his daughter's wedding. The villagers immediately pointed him to Marcus's workshop, though they warned him he's skilled but unreliable. Some days he won't even pick up his tools. The merchant, intrigued, approached Marcus, who was sitting under a tree, watching the clouds. "Young man, I need 20 chairs and 5 tables for my daughter's wedding next month. I'll pay you triple the usual rate." Marcus looked at the merchant calmly and said, "I cannot start today." The merchant was shocked. "But why? This is the opportunity of a lifetime." Marcus simply replied, "The wood is not ready. The trees were cut at the wrong moon phase. If I build now, the furniture will crack within a year." The merchant left in frustration, hiring another carpenter instead. But believe it or not, 2 weeks later, the merchant returned, his face pale with worry. "The furniture is already warping. My daughter is devastated. Please, can you help?" This time, Marcus stood up immediately. "Now the wood from the eastern forest is ready. I'll begin today." The villagers watched in amazement as Marcus worked 18 hours a day for the next week, creating pieces more beautiful than anyone had ever seen. His grandmother Sarah watched all this with a knowing smile. One evening, she asked Solomon the crow, who seemed to understand everything, "Do you see what the villagers don't?" The crow cawed softly, and Sarah nodded. "Yes, he understands something they don't, that there's a time for everything under heaven." Then guess what happened? Word spread about Marcus's exceptional work, and soon nobles from distant towns began seeking him out. But Marcus continued his strange pattern, sometimes refusing work that seemed perfect, other times accepting projects that appeared impossible. The villagers grew more confused. He turned down the Duke's commission but agreed to fix old Widow Mary's broken chair for free, they gossiped. One particular summer, a severe drought hit the village. Most craftsmen struggled as people had no money for new furniture. Marcus, however, had spent the previous months, what everyone called his lazy period, studying the ancient art of water divining. While others panicked, Marcus used his newfound skill to locate underground water sources, saving the village's crops. "How did you know to learn this?" the village elder asked. Marcus replied, "When my hands weren't building, my mind was preparing. What you called laziness, I called readiness." Something surprising occurred when Marcus's younger cousin, Peter, came to apprentice with him. Peter was eager, always wanting to work, to build, to create without pause. "Why do we stop, Marcus? Why don't we take every job? We could be rich." Marcus led Peter to the workshop window where Solomon perched. "Watch the crow, Peter. Does he fly constantly?" Peter observed Solomon throughout the day. The crow would sit perfectly still for hours, then suddenly take flight with incredible precision to catch his prey. "But Marcus, we're not birds. We need to work to eat." Peter protested. Marcus smiled and began telling Peter about the seasons of wood. In spring, the sap rises, making wood too wet. In summer, it's perfect for certain cuts. In autumn, the grain tightens. In winter, the wood sleeps. If you work against these rhythms, you work twice as hard for half the result. But a few days later, Peter's impatience got the better of him. While Marcus was in his contemplation phase, Peter secretly took commission to build a bed for the mayor's son. He worked day and night, proud to show Marcus he didn't need rest. The bed was beautiful, and everyone praised Peter's dedication. "See, Marcus, I didn't need to wait or rest. Hard work is all that matters." The news spread quickly through the village that Peter had surpassed his master. People began saying, "The student learned what the teacher couldn't. That consistent hard work beats talent." Peter glowed with pride, taking on more and more projects, working from dawn to past midnight. Marcus watched quietly, neither praising nor criticizing. Once again, something shifted. 3 months later, Peter collapsed from exhaustion. But worse than that, all the furniture he'd built in his frenzy began falling apart. The wood hadn't been properly treated. The joints were rushed. The finish was uneven. Customers demanded their money back. Peter, bedridden and ruined, wept in frustration. "I worked so hard. I never stopped. How did this happen?" Marcus sat beside his cousin's bed. "See, Peter, what happens in life is never simple. You saw my stillness as laziness, but I was reading the wood, understanding the seasons, listening to what each project really needed. True laziness is working without thinking. True productivity is knowing when to act and when to wait." Solomon the crow flew in through the window, dropping a perfect piece of seasoned oak on Peter's bed. Even the crow knew about perfect timing. That's why the village finally began to understand Marcus's way. He wasn't lazy during his quiet periods. He was charging, like a bow being pulled back before releasing the arrow. His grandmother Sarah put it beautifully. "A field that never rests produces weak crops. A mind that never pauses produces weak ideas." Marcus understands what God has been trying to teach us all along, that everything has its season. From that day forward, Peter learned to work with the rhythms Marcus taught him. Together, they transformed their workshop into the most sought after in the region. But more importantly, they taught the village a new way of seeing work and rest. The villagers stopped calling Marcus lazy and started calling him wise. Years later, when Marcus had become an old man himself, a young ambitious carpenter asked him, "Master Marcus, what's the secret to killing laziness forever?" Marcus looked at Solomon's descendant, now perching where the old crow once sat, and smiled. "The secret is understanding that what we call laziness is often our soul's way of telling us we're forcing the wrong season. True laziness is ignoring these signals and either doing nothing when we should act or acting when we should wait. The real lesson is that killing laziness forever isn't about forcing yourself to constant action. It's about aligning yourself with the natural rhythms of life, understanding that periods of apparent inactivity are often when the most important growth happens. What seems like laziness might be preparation. What seems like procrastination might be divine timing. Whether it's good or bad, productive or restful, only time can tell the full story. That's why we must trust that God's plan includes both our active seasons and our quiet ones. The habit shift that kills laziness forever is learning to distinguish between the resistance of fear and the wisdom of waiting for the right moment. Maybe something is happening in your life right now where you're beating yourself up for not being productive enough. Maybe you're comparing your quiet season to someone else's harvest time. But trust that God's plan includes these rhythms. Your periods of rest aren't failures. They're investments. Your moments of explosive productivity aren't lucky. They're the result of patient preparation. Remember this when you feel lazy. Ask yourself, am I avoiding what I should do? Or am I being called to prepare in stillness? Don't fall apart when you can't seem to take action on everything immediately. But also don't get carried away thinking that waiting is always the answer. The crucial habit shift is developing the wisdom to know the difference. Like Marcus learned to read the wood, you must learn to read the seasons of your own life. Like Solomon the crow, sometimes perfect stillness is what comes before perfect action. This is the paradox of productivity. Those who never rest never truly work. Those who never work never truly rest. The secret to killing laziness forever is to stop seeing it as the enemy and start seeing it as a misunderstood friend trying to teach you about timing. When you understand this, you'll never feel guilty about your quiet periods again, and you'll never waste your active periods on the wrong pursuits. Every master was once called lazy by those who didn't understand their process. Every breakthrough was preceded by what looked like doing nothing. The smartphone you're watching this on was invented by someone who spent years doing nothing but thinking. The greatest books were written by authors who spent months lazily staring out windows. The most successful businesses were built by entrepreneurs who wasted time observing before acting. Your laziness isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. The question isn't how to kill it, but how to understand what it's trying to tell you. Are you truly being lazy, avoiding growth and responsibility? Or are you in a sacred pause, gathering energy for your next leap? Only you can answer this. But when you do, you'll have found the crucial habit shift that transforms everything. If you like this story, don't forget to leave a like. Tell us in the comments, what did you learn from Marcus's journey and how you see your own periods of rest and action differently now. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.